Welcome to Where's Wilmington. You know, maybe today we ought to change the program to Where's Tewksbury. Since I'm from Tewksbury, and my distinguished guest here to my right is Doug Sears. He is from Tewksbury as well. And we're going to be talking a little bit about you and a little bit about something big in your life that's going on, some sort of political stuff. Tell the folks about it.
Well, it's my 36th wedding anniversary. Today we can't get more political than that, but I thought I'd share it being here with you today. And I am running for 19th Middlesex representative as a Republican, and would like to be able to get known a little bit more by the people of Wilmington. I've been in public office in Tewksbury on the school committee when my kids were smaller, and I'm in my third term on the Board of Selectmen and am the Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen right now. And I'd like to represent Wilmington on Beacon Hill and represent Tewksbury. And I thought that it would be a nice opportunity to come here and people to get to know me better just as a person and not as necessarily as a candidate, but in both ways. I've watched some of your shows, and by the way, I'm very impressed with this setup here. I wish we had this in Tewksbury. So I'm learning something. I'm learning something about Wilmington here. This is quite impressive.
So tell me, Doug, you've done a lot of things in your life, and we're going to talk about some of that. You know, law school, and you were a minister, or do you say pastor?
Still am.
So you've done a lot with your life. Why now for this particular part?
I'm ready.
Really?
I am ready.
So why did it take you so long?
Well, because I was working for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as the Deputy Director of the Division of Dispute Resolution at the Department of Industrial Actions. A lot of D's. I say kiddingly, but the homeroom teacher for the judges there, and got involved in a lot of workers' compensation issues. And I was given the gift of involuntary retirement by our governor. And I said, well, how could I perhaps say thank you for this? And I said that taking up his call to run for public office might be a way I could put my talents as a lawyer, minister, and teacher, together in public service. So when this election cycle came around, I had certain folks saying, Doug, this might be a really good thing for you to do. And I said, I think that I'll give it a shot. I would like to. They're going back genealogically that I've had folks be representatives locally, in Beacon Hill back over time, and I said, why not me? So that's what I'm doing.
So it's in your blood, kind of.
I would say it's in my blood.
So how do you feel the skills that you've acquired as being a lawyer, a minister, and a teacher will apply to the world of politics? I mean, I know all politicians are lawyers, so that makes sense. But the other two pieces, how do you think being a teacher especially will work in the political arena? Aren't they always teaching us? We're not usually benefiting that way.
Well, I remember watching a State of the State address. This is not exactly on point, but as people were I was up in the balcony coming into the well of the House of Representatives, and one of the representatives came in and looked up and said, "Hi, Mr. Sears," and I said, "Hi, Gino." Gino Flaherty. I said, when the representatives are folks you've had in class, you're moving along. But I'm able to relate well in teaching. I have to learn. There's a lot of learning that will be necessary that I'll learn from my colleagues. I'm a learner, and I also do teaching. Maybe I'm a slow learner. I like to be able, once I learn something, I like to be able to teach it to people. So I think that's where teaching, that's where ministry comes together, that's where law comes together. And I think these are all people skills which will be helpful on Beacon Hill.
So you sound like you've always been kind of a curious person.
I absolutely have always been curious, and I always want to know more, and I want to be able to be helpful to people. I went into law school after serving a couple of churches in Stoneham. And matter of fact, the first Unitarian church in Stoneham, which I served for 4 years, is now the cable TV center for Stoneham, and they've preserved the building, which is wonderful. And they've got again a wonderful setup over there. But I left, so I was teaching at Malden Catholic High School, was going to Suffolk, and I was the assistant pastor at the First Congregational Church there in Stoneham. And people would come to me with their problems. You could counsel them, you could pray with them, you could try to figure out what the next step was. And it seemed to be, why don't you go see a lawyer? And it was then came to, well, perhaps if I were a lawyer, I could take this another step. I could bring their situation into a court of law where I would be able to get something quantifiable, a piece of paper that said, you can do this or you can't do that. And
right.
so I went to Suffolk Law School at night, and at my last day of 39 became a member of the Massachusetts Bar, and I've been doing that for a while. And I enjoy that. And I do have a church in Brookline. It's a Unity congregation, which is sort of an offshoot of Christian Science. And I've been the co-minister of that Christ Church. It's called Christ Church Longwood since about 1985. So it's a small congregation on a beautiful old, still freestanding church, still owned, but still privately owned, and so that has been a great interest. So bringing these interests together to help people. I mean, I really firmly believe that the only measure of success in life is that in the years that we have here to do things, that we can leave our world a little better for our having been in it. I mean, there's no real other measure. I mean, we're all going to die at some point in time. We can't take our toys with us. We can't take many things with us. So it's whatever we can do to make people's burdens lighter and be able to leave the world a little bit better for having been here. So I would bring that to Beacon Hill. Now, I don't think that's a naive approach to take. I'm sure that is all over Beacon Hill in many ways. But I would like to be able to, I'm not a career politician at all. I don't put politician next to my name and picture somewhere. What I would...
You think that's a dirty word?
Not at all, but it is, if you are a politician, means that's all you do.
Really?
And that I would, well, let me say this way, that my opponent in this race, next to his picture in the State House, says politician. Well, that's all he has done since October 30th, 1977. Has served, has done a lot of good for a lot of people, has served people well. But when you're there past like your second term or so, you then concern more about getting reelected. I mean, he was quite a ball of fire back when he did his first term. I believe
the he you're referring to, just so we make it clear, is Jim Maselli, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes. He was the legislator of the year, and he was all full of energy and enthusiasm, and then I believe that he got part of the doing business as usual on Beacon Hill. I mean, he votes with the Speaker this last year 88.5% of the time, according to the Boston Globe yesterday. That is not entirely independent. I mean, some of those votes, I'm sure, are very excellent votes, but it's not really an independent stick. Up goes that little green light in the House chamber, and then ding, 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 all of the folks fall into line. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad to vote with the Speaker, but you do that in order to survive, I would gather, and he's a survivor.
Well, some could argue that experience is the best teacher, and he's been doing it for a long time, so maybe because he's been there for so long, he knows the system a little better than you might, which is where your learning curve comes in. Just playing devil's advocate with you.
No,
here,
absolutely. He knows the system better than I do, and he has survived. He is a survivor. I cannot point to any legislation, for example, on a statewide level that he has sponsored in his 35 years there. I'd be interested to know what he is proud of, what he has actually put in. I mean, if you look at the bills that he sponsors, are all sick leave banks for so on, which is important for that so on, or transfer some sort of land from Tewksbury Hospital to some individual, or doing those types of things on his own. but I don't know of any, vision that he has for the Commonwealth that would help Wilmington, that'll help Tewksbury. And I hope that I'm sure that he will tell us.
Yes, I was
going to
say, as long-winded as he is, and he's always been very kind to me, so I have nothing to say either way about that. But I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you his views.
I know.
I'm sure he'll, be more than happy to sit down and tell you.
Long-winded, he does spend.
What he thinks.
When someone is allotted 3 minutes, he takes 9, and he takes a great pleasure in saying that he has some sort of entitlement to do so, which I know everybody looks askance at, but few people mention.
So are you here to say the emperor has no clothes then?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you heard it here first.
Absolutely. No.
But we don't want to get into a contest about character. Well, we
no,
really
no,
do want to talk about you.
He has the most sterling of character. I'm just saying that when you have been there so long, you're trying, a candidate who's been an incumbent will try to do that which will keep them getting reelected. And that's one of the things I feel that he favors Tewksbury, because it's got more people in Tewksbury who are voters, well, a higher number vote in Tewksbury, and of that amount of voters, a higher percentage of those votes. So Wilmington, in many ways, I feel, or I've been told, doesn't have quite the representation, because the incumbent can get elected by carrying Tewksbury and by not carrying Wilmington. So that's a matter of the math.
So you're here to say maybe you feel that the Wilmington voters or constituents are getting the short end of the stick.
Yes, at least that's what I've been told by when I've been going around and talking with people. And Wilmington is sort of like a new country for me, in the sense that I want to get to know the people in Wilmington. I've gone to the selectmen's meetings. I've sat through the 6-hour town meeting. I've gone
to the Thanksgiving football game, Tewksbury, Wilmington. That will show you everything you need to know.
I've been to many in snow and rain and sleet and hail and beautiful weather.
Yes.
But no, I understand these things. But I would like to very much represent on Beacon Hill the interests of both Tewksbury and Wilmington, and particularly I would like to, as a selectman, I've learned, and as a school committee person, I've learned that it is important for the representative to be closely involved with those folks and the committees, and not be aloof from them. And also, many of the things that I think Jim does as favors for people are things that perhaps should be done on a selectman level, or on a school committee level, or on a, we've got people in the town hired to do this type of stuff level, and it shouldn't be looked at as, we've got to go to the rep to do it. I think the people in Wilmington are perfectly able to handle lots of their things through their municipal government, and you don't need to feel this, we've got Santa Claus we got to go to, and every time we need to, to put grandma away in Tewksbury Hospital or something.
I see your point, and it's certainly an interesting one, and it's a little bit refreshing and unusual. We're going to take our midpoint break here, but do keep watching, especially my Wilmington viewers, if you want to know a little bit more about this man, Doug Sears, who is wanting to represent this town in a different way. We'll talk a little bit more about Doug the person, a little bit more than his beliefs so much when we come back. So stay right here. You're watching Where's Wilmington? We'll be right back.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European pro golf tours, 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Where's Wilmington? I'm Lisa Capalla, and I have with me Doug Sears, who is running for state representative for the 19th Middlesex District.
Yes.
And he's from Tewksbury, like me. So don't hold it against him. Some of us are actually all right, So how do you find that Wilmington and Tewksbury differ then? You said it's important, you feel that whoever represents them understands the town. We're really close to each other, but there are big differences between the towns. What do you see?
I've been really concerned that the way, well, we'll take the high school issue. I was at the
Wilmington High School or Tewksbury?
Both.
Okay.
I was at Tewksbury High School last night for the special town meeting. that was built quickly. The folks of the town voted for it. It got funded. It came in under budget. It's beautiful. We used Hudson Mass's basic plan, so it got a discount. And the town manager, Richard Montori, and Dr. O'Connor, as the head of the school as a superintendent, they worked together. It all happened, and school started in the fall. So that is very possible.
I have to tell you, this is a touchy subject with our Wilmington folks.
I know it is
it's a very sensitive topic, and I went to the Tech too, so it's sensitive to me as well.
We're not talking palaces here. Tech's a palace. I want to go there. I wish I could.
And it was great.
I wish I had. Okay,
you still can.
Okay, I know in the evening classes, but in Wilmington, there seems to be a way for sort of like the flea on the end of the tail can wag the dog, and that doesn't necessarily work out best.
Okay.
I've attended the DEP meeting where the folks from the town side, with the folks who were appealing the two groups that were appealing the siting of the high school were there. The folks from the DEP were there talking about jurisdictional issues and plans and this and that. It reminded me of Congress. And I said,
was it frustrating to you?
That is very frustrating. That was really too bad.
So what would you have done differently?
Well, I'm just saying that we'll go to the town meeting. I went to the town meeting. We had probably 1 hour's worth of business. It took 6 hours to get done.
Okay. But how will you be able to change that?
As a representative, that's the town's issue to do. But I'm saying there's some spirit, I would say, like at the selectmen's meetings, everyone is allowed to, there's a public speaking at the end of each topic. For example, in Tewksbury, we have a residence section, which is limited to 5 minutes and per speaker. I mean, this is a governance issue as a town manager. It's a selectmen's issue, but there's almost, you say, how the community is different.
Right, right.
I'm saying, take these school issues. One is paralyzed, the other it goes through very nicely. Now, I don't know I don't have the magic that will make it different, but your interest was, how are they different?
Yes.
I'm interested in, I've taught a high school for 14 years. My kids went through Tewksbury High School and now in state colleges. They're both seniors. I'm very interested in public education, so I'm very interested in looking at this particular matter and trying to work with the community to facilitate this in some way happening. I mean, the DEP regs have to be changed. If you get 10 people of any stripe who can come in and say, hi, we're 10 people, we're going to appeal this regulation. Well, you got to start from the agencies changing its regulations, and you got to have the legislature change the statutes if indeed this is something that can be done.
And it's all very easy for us to say that,
and that's what
too,
but that's what
because we're on the outside looking in.
But that's what a legislature would be able to make some changes in the legislature. So that's the only, as a legislature,
and
I would be able to do.
And I know that one of your big platforms is government waste. So it's sounding like you feel like a lot of time has been wasted, not so much for wrong reasons, but maybe things should be moving more smoothly.
Absolutely. I would be totally frustrated if I were a parent and was looking for my kid to go to a new Wilmington high school, and we've got, because runoff may or may not go into some person's system, like get them on town water, or something DEP doesn't perhaps have jurisdiction over has been allowed an oil spill to slow this down, and the fact that this occurs, it would make me totally frustrated.
And I'm sure that everyone in Wilmington and beyond is frustrated. I know people are frustrated.
And I would want to help as much as possible. I went to the there was a meeting on that very subject where I had, it was an informational meeting, and it lasted many hours. So I've been trying to learn as much as I can. It's a frustrating thing. This should not characterize what Business Week says as the most livable suburb around. So there's a bit of a disconnect in Wilmington when you have stuff like I just mentioned, and then you find that Business Week is saying that this is very livable.
Okay, but you say you have no magic wand, so what are you, Doug, the person, not the politician, going to do to help with that if you do get elected?
What I want to do is to be able to insert some of, I would say, my personal experience, having taught for 14 years, being an attorney, try to be a facilitator to resolve these matters, try to help those who are actually charged with the resolving of it. This is not one of these, Deus ex machina, out comes the legislature and zap, it's all going to be fine. But moving in a positive attitude fashion towards building a community that people are proud of, and certainly people are proud in Wilmington and proud of this high school. It's almost within their reach, but it's sort of it's not like slipping away like it won't happen, but it is slipping further and farther into the future, and the costs are going up, and people's times passes. I just say it's time. It's time for me. It's time for me to run, and I want to do it. I'm doing it. I want to represent Tewksbury. I want to represent Wilmington. I particularly want to come to know Wilmington and be known by Wilmington and be able to concentrate my skill set into helping those people in Wilmington resolve various problems that they may have and also experience their joys. Right. And to represent what the people would like to see a representative representing on their behalf on Beacon Hill.
So you say you're for term limits, and you say you're only going to stay in office if you do get elected for 2 terms, correct?
That's what
you're going to be able to accomplish undoing all of that in 2 terms?
You got to start. It's
it's lofty. I applaud your courage.
Well, no, but you have to start somewhere. We've taken the Commonwealth has taken years to get this way.
Right, that's true.
And that it's one small step at a time. A journey of 1,000 miles. Begins one step at a time, and it's almost like in church where you have a long-term pastorate, and then that comes to an end. You have there's a need for a transition, and I'm sort of looking to be that transition in this particular time. Serve a couple terms, get what is necessary done, and then leave it for the people come after. I do not plan to be a professional politician, as I said earlier. The original colonists, or the folks who were my representatives in my family, were farmers. When the springtime planting came, they left the legislature, and this time of year, when the harvesting takes place, they would go back in. But they were farming during the summer. They weren't doing this full time. They weren't doing this over decades. You had another life. You did things in the community as professionals, as tradesmen, whatever it was that you did that in the community, and you said. So that is sort of the view that I have. We've come this full-time legislature, which I don't really think is necessary in Massachusetts, and that's another issue. But it was never intended to be a profession. It was never intended to be a full year round, and that I'm looking to be able to have an involvement with my communities the same way that my ancestors in Tewksbury, in Watertown, and in Waltham, and in Dennis in particular, were representatives in the Massachusetts House.
How are you finding the campaigning process and the political machine, as it will? You sound like a traditionalist to me. How are you finding all this goings-on that the campaign trail brings?
Well, it's interesting. I would say that it is time to retire one-party rule. And one-party rule where 88.5% goes in one direction, and you've got 12% going in another direction. I mean, if quite frankly, if everybody, I would say, was a Republican, I'd probably be a Democrat. I mean, I think there should be a balance.
What I was asking is, do you feel your message is being well received? Are you feeling your message that you're sending out
I feel it's
being
being well received, because I have more people saying they don't like to. It's kind of, yeah, you're right. It's time. It's time for a change, and that it's time for I would say more. Other voices to be involved. There are a lot of people who don't, in Wilmington, Tewksbury, who don't even know who I am or who Jim Maselli is, and they'll all be voting in this election.
And we certainly don't want to say change for change's sake.
Absolutely
we want to say
not.
you're backing up what you're saying with some skills and some life achievements that you feel will translate well to this arena. And I guess people will have to just take a look at you and see what they think and make up their own minds.
Well,
right?
I certainly hope they do, and I would like very much to be their representative. I have no axe to grind, and I'm not aspiring to do something beyond this in the political life. I just think it's something everyone should consider doing as a duty. There's a certain resilientness one has to have, because this is a time you become a target for everybody who's got some sort of a discontent to throw.
Well, it'll definitely test your mettle, won't it? So before we close today, Doug, I'm glad you came, and I think we covered a lot of ground in this half an hour. What would you like folks to know in closing about you, or how can they get more information about you if they'd like to know more?
Well, I do have a website these days. It's Doug4 with the number 4 rep.com, and I am having a event at the Tewksbury Country Club on October 18th from 6 to 9. It's a rally. I hope anyone who wants to come to get to know me, there'll be other candidates there. It'll be a real fun time. You can RSVP on my website, or you can make a contribution by card, credit card on the website. And basically, all I'm trying to do is to help. Everybody says they're going to help people, but as I said, the only measure of a successful life is how well a person has been able to make the path easier for others who come after them, and have made the world a little bit better for their having been there. That's all I've been interested in teaching ministry, law, and running for rep, which will bring, in my mind, all of these together.
Well, yeah, and it certainly does sound like the next step on the bucket list. It certainly sounds like the next thing to do. I do wish you luck in it, and I hope you do get your dream to come true. It sounds like it'll be good for the town as well as you. I certainly don't want to make any political comments, but you seem like a very nice guy to me, and I'm glad you came on my show and shared a little bit about yourself and your beliefs with the Wilmington residents.
Well, thank you for having me in this gorgeous studio, and for a pleasant conversation.
Excellent. I do want to say happy anniversary, though, to your lovely wife, Suzanne. So happy anniversary, Suzanne, and we're sorry we kept him from you. Just wanted to remind you, you're watching Where's Wilmington? This has been with Doug Sears today, talking a little bit about what's going on in the political arena in this town and beyond. I want to remind you that the next time somebody asks you, where's Wilmington, you tell them right here, and right here on WCTV. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.